Hello everyone and welcome to the very first WBA Canada YouTube video. My name is Baden and I am 18 years old. I live in Guelph, Ontario, Canada, but I am a huge West Brom fan. For today's video, I wanted to bring on somebody who knew what it was like to be a soccer fan in Canada, but also had experience with West Bromwich Albion. I sent many messages and finally I got one back. Today, I'm happy to share with you guys an interview I did with former West Brom player and fellow Canadian Paul Peschisolido a couple weeks ago. Without further ado, here it is. Enjoy. How are you doing today, Paul?
I'm doing pretty well considering. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So my first question for you today, we'll start at the very beginning because obviously you grew up in Canada just like I did. I'd love to ask you, how did you get into soccer?
Well, I got into it at the age of 4 or 5. And it was the reason being was I was a lonely child. My mom was a bit concerned that I didn't like to mix with other kids. So she forced me to go down to the local football club, soccer club, which was, I think it was West Shore Tigers, I think it was, because I was out in Pickering.
Yeah.
And I screamed and cried all the way to the first training session because I didn't want to go there. And then as soon as they threw the ball out, I think I got the ball and went through everyone and scored a goal. And that was it. I was hooked from that day forward. So yeah, I played, I think 1 or 2 years at the West Shore Tigers. And then from there moved on to Guildwood, which at the time was probably the best team in Ontario. So they picked me up from Guildwood, from West Shore. In fact, I think I played for Pickering for a season or so. And then moved to Guildwood, where we dominated Ontario for a good number of years, winning numerous Ontario Cups in every tournament going. From there, I moved to Wexford for a couple of seasons. Again, a very good side. Then to Scarborough Blues, where again we went on to win Ontario Cups and all sorts, and went to the Canadian finals. Unfortunately, lost to I think it was a Vancouver team. And that's how I got involved.
And there's nothing quite like winning and scoring to get you hooked on a game.
That's exactly it. Yeah. I took to it right away. I was a natural. So yeah, enjoyed my time playing back home. And then fortunately for me, at the age of 16, I was chosen as a group of players to represent Canada in the Under-16 World Cup. Had that World Cup not have been hosted in Canada, in Toronto, actually, we probably wouldn't have qualified, and I might have gone on to pursue other things. But from kind of 14, 15, the idea of playing for Canada and representing Canada in the World Cup was brilliant. That's why I stayed with it. Also, I was good at it, but when if you think there's no avenue beyond what you're doing, you tend to pursue other things.
Yeah. So since you brought that up, I have a question. So my uncle is the coach of the University of Guelph soccer team. His name is Keith Mason. I don't know if you would know him, but I FaceTimed him a couple weeks ago once I knew that we were going to do this call. And I said to him, do you have any special anecdotes about Paul Peschisolido that I should know? And he asked me to ask you if you remember playing a friendly game in Guelph at the Alumni Stadium for a coach called Paul James.
Absolutely. Yeah, vaguely. I've played so many games back home, but are you referring to Paul James, the international Canadian Paul James?
Yes.
Yeah, who I actually went on to play football with at Toronto Blizzards with Paul James, and with the national team. He was a great guy and a great coach. But I wasn't involved. Him as a coach of Canada, he was doing the under-21s. He was doing the younger group. I was already beyond that, so I never actually had Paul James as a coach. I only played with him. I'm a heck of a lot older than that.
So I'll move on a little bit here. Was there any players growing up that influenced you?
Players influenced me. I think probably not to. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Players, but my parents, I think, were a huge influence on my career, especially my dad. Being Italian, he grew up with football and played a little bit himself before emigrating to Canada. So he was highly influential in everything I did as a player. But as a young kid growing up, I used to, again, my parents both being immigrants from Italy, I watched a lot of Italian football. So the 82 World Cup where Italy won, Paolo Rossi was the golden boot, again, way before your time. And the fact that my name's actually Paolo as well, and he was a Paolo Rossi, I absolutely loved him and worshipped him. So as a player, that was probably one player I always tried to emulate on the pitch, because he was kind of a fox in the box. Very similar to myself, was a poacher as opposed to scorer of great goals. He would score lots of goals, always in the right place at the right time. And I tried to kind of model my game around him because we were both the same stature as well. So yeah, he was a legend.
All right. Yeah. So in reading up to you, I'm going to move a little bit further forward. I read that you went pretty much from high school straight to the Toronto Blizzards. What exactly was that like? I'd imagine it was stressful. I'm in my last year of high school, and I couldn't imagine going straight from winning an OFSA championship like you did to all of a sudden being a professional.
I was doing both at the same time. I was actually in high school when I was drafted to Toronto Blizzard. So it wasn't afterwards, it was during. So it was cool. It was great. I was going to school. I'll be honest, school was never my strong point. I wasn't terrible at it, but I was so caught up with soccer that unfortunately my school probably took to my parents' disgust, took a second fiddling to soccer. So, but it was great. You're in high school, you're playing professional football, soccer rather. It was, what young kids dream of. And I even remember a funny story, because I wasn't supposed to be playing for Dennis O'Connor, which was my high school at the time, because obviously I was playing for Blizzard. But I'd play anyway, because I just wouldn't tell Tony Taylor, who was the coach. And we went to play, I think it was either Pickering High or Dumbarton. I can't remember which one. And I got there, and I don't know if you remember back in the day, there was a player called Jens Kramer, who played for Jens Kramer played for the North York Rockets. He was 6'4", big meathead of a defender.
Oh, yeah.
And I turned up at the pitch, and he was the school teacher at Dennis O'Connor, at Dumbarton or Pickering, can't remember. And he was coaching teams. Like, Paul, what are you doing here? You can't be playing for your high school team. It's not fair. So it was quite a funny story, and I think we went on to win the game, and he was a bit gutted. But and then probably the weekend I was playing against Jens, who's the teacher. So I loved it. I absolutely loved playing soccer as much as I could. I would, as soon as I'd play at school, come home, I'd play back at home in the backyard. So it was my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I read also you won the Rookie of the Year that year. So it obviously something was working there.
Yeah. I was drafted number 1 overall for Toronto Blizzard, and fortunately, I got straight into the team and made Rookie of the Year, which was also nice. And and again, because of the Canadian Soccer League, that enabled me to stay in it, and gave me the opportunity of moving on to England, because my former coach, who was Tony Taylor of Toronto Blizzard, he was the one who organized the trial to go to Birmingham City, because he had moved to Birmingham to become a coach there. And that's how it all kind of happened.
Yeah. So how was the decision to go from North America to Europe? Because obviously I believe you played in Kansas for a little bit of time after Toronto. How was that decision?
That's right. Well, again, Kansas was just, again, like I said to you, that was always something I wanted to pursue, and the opportunity to go to Kansas, it was in the off season after school had finished. It was only a four-month season indoor, I think. So it didn't affect anything. So I went over there and absolutely loved it. But I think at that time, soccer was kind of on the way down. The MISL, the Major Indoor Soccer League, was starting to really slow down. And I knew that if I wanted to really make a proper living out of football, then I needed to go abroad, because that's where all the best leagues in the world were. And if you wanted to make the big money, that's what you had to do. So when I had the opportunity to go, Tony Taylor rang me up and said, Birmingham City are really struggling in the first division at the time. They need a striker desperately. He said, why don't you get your Italian passport, fly over here. I'll arrange the trial and accommodation, and we'll go from there. And it turned out to be the best decision I ever made. You know, it was tough at first because in North America, you know yourself, the life is great. You know, we've got a lot of benefits of living in North America. You know, our houses are nicer. It's a nicer standard of living. It's a great place to live. So going to England, it was a bit of a culture shock at first, but you know, sometimes you got to make sacrifices to get on with your life. And like I said, I'm pleased I did, and I'm still here today.
Did you have involvement with the Juventus Academy? Because I read that
I
somewhere.
did, yeah. I did. What happened was when I was at Toronto Blizzard, Roberto Bettica, who was a superstar at Toronto Blizzard in the NIS, the NASL days, North American Soccer League days, he was a Juventus player, and he became the director of football at Juve. So there was still a link between Toronto Blizzard and Juve through Bettica, who, so the owner of Blizzard at the time brought me over there on a trial basis to Juve, and I stayed there with the academy. And I loved it. You know, it was brilliant. But I became homesick after being there for quite some time, and picked up a little injury and decided that I wanted to go back home, which, you know, looking back now was a stupid decision, but I just don't think I was mature enough, you know, 16 or 17, whatever I was. I just wasn't mature enough. I was a bit of a mama's boy, and kind of let myself down and came back home. And my dad, being a huge Juve fan, was devastated. And, you know, he said to me, you keep saying you want to be this soccer player. You have this opportunity of a lifetime, and, you know, you bottle it. You come home and, you know, you better get a good education, because you're not going to make it as a footballer if you don't have the guts to see it out in a foreign country. So a couple of years later, matured a little bit more, and made sure that the opportunity in England I wasn't going to pass this time, and stuck it out. And it turned out to be, again, great decision.
Yeah, great. So I do want to ask you a little bit about your play, because you talked a little bit. I've seen, looking at your stats, you have the knack for just getting goals, and being near the top of the scoring list for your team and the league that you're in. Was there a certain mindset you would go into games with? Like, would you say, there's a weak defender, I got to go after this guy today, or something like that?
Well, we always, obviously through the week, you work on team shape with your team, and you look at the opposition and you see where their weaknesses are and their strengths are. So you have a game plan, and, you know, you go into a game not really thinking about, you think of your role within it, but it's a team, you know, it's a team game. But I would go into every game wanting to score. It was just, you know, something that I don't even know how to explain to you, the feeling of scoring in front of a big crowd, what it does to you. I don't think you could recreate it. And it's something you'll never get back. Like, it's just the most amazing feeling you can't imagine. So going into every game, I wanted to score. And if I didn't score, even if the team won, I would be pleased that we won, but be disappointed if I didn't get on the score sheet, or disappointed if I missed an opportunity where I should have put it away. So I did pride myself in scoring goals, because that was, you know, that was my job as a striker. I liked creating goals as well, which I had back then we didn't do stats for assists, but I'd like to think I had my hand in a number of other goals as well. But for me, it was putting the ball in the back of the net. I loved it.
So obviously now I'm going to talk a little bit about your time at West Brom. First of all, when did you first hear you were going to be heading to West Brom, and what were your thoughts on that?
Oh, geez. Okay. I'm not very good with years, so you'll have to probably remind me. Probably 94, 95, maybe I went to West Brom.
1996.
96. Okay. Well, I had obviously gone to Birmingham, moved to Stoke City, back to Birmingham, and I literally just signed for Birmingham. I think I'd been there maybe not even 6 months, maybe 5 months. And Trevor Francis, the manager at the time, decided he just didn't want me at the club. He didn't like it. I don't know if you know, my wife obviously was the managing director of Birmingham City.
Yeah.
So I think he felt that was going to be an issue. And he just said to me that you're not going to fit in my plans. I've got players that are coming in that are far better than you. And I was devastated. I was gutted because no one wants to hear that.
No.
But West Brom came in. It was Alan Buckley at the time. I had a knack for scoring a lot of goals against West Brom. So they probably thought, God, if we sign this kid, he'll stop scoring against us. So I met with Alan Buckley, and they thrashed out a deal amongst the two clubs. And I was delighted to go there because I wanted to play first team football. I wanted to be in a side that wanted me. And I loved it. I think that season I scored, 19 goals, far more goals than any of the Birmingham City strikers, which made me even happier.
Yeah.
Because obviously I wanted to prove to Trevor Fenton that he had made a big mistake letting me go, and it turned out to be a great move. I loved it, really enjoyed it. We had a great camaraderie at the club, and some great strikers I played up front with.
Yeah, you made 45 appearances with the clubs, and according to Wikipedia, it says 18 goals, but I think I trust you a little bit more.
Okay, all right, maybe. I'm not entirely sure, but I know I scored a lot of goals in the season I was there.
Yeah, and it's absolutely fantastic. We don't have a great history of having a lot of goal scorers, so to see someone do so well in that short amount of games, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
So, what were your thoughts on the fans and the atmosphere at the Hawthorns?
It was superb. And at the time, we had a really good team. Again, it's probably way before your time, but we had the likes of Richard Sneakers, the Dutch midfielder who scored a lot of goals from midfield. We had an exciting team, and we played a real exciting brand of football. It was, it was typical Baggie's football, slow build up, playing out the back, very technical game where you'd get the ball in the box, all 1-2s. And at that time, we were blessed with some really good strikers. There was myself, there was Andy Hunt, who again, me and him formed a formidable partnership. Super Bob Taylor, who, if you speak to any West Bromwich Albion supporter, they go on. Bob Taylor is a legend of the club. Yeah. And the three of us, we used to take it in turns, rotating to play two of us. And it became quite competitive because obviously all three of us were goal scorers and we all wanted to play. So, we had a lot of attacking options, and the crowd, when they would boing baggies, and they'd be jumping up and down, and they're the club that started the Peschisolido chant, I think. And when they would be bouncing up and down, you could feel the ground would actually rock. They were superb supporters, and it was a shame I was only there for a short period of time, but it was some of my fondest memories. It was a great time.
Yeah, my parents actually went and saw the team in 1996. So when I told my dad about this interview, he was like, "Oh yeah, I remember going and he was on the team." And this shirt I'm wearing is from that trip.
I was about to say, I remember Patrick. We had Patrick back then. That's right. Do you know which game they went to?
I don't remember what game it was specifically, but they remember going to those games.
Oh, nice.
So I was going to ask you, what would you say if you had to pick a memory would be your favorite from being at West Brom?
Best memory, probably my hat trick away at Norwich.
Oh yeah.
Was my first hat trick? I think it was my first hat trick. Yeah. For the club, and it was away at Norwich. We were flying high, and I think we won the game either 4-0 or 3-0. I can't remember whether I scored all three or there may have been another goal in there. To score your first hat trick as a professional is superb, and to do it away from home at Norwich was a tough place to go, and that was probably one of my fondest memories. I also scored another hat trick against Barry away as well for West Brom. So yeah, that was also great memories. What other games? I can't remember too many, but obviously scoring two hat tricks always resonate in the back of your mind.
Yeah, I actually, in doing some research, I found the highlights to that Bury game, and I gotta say, some of those goals were just pretty good. I mean, Particularly the second one I watched was when you chipped it over the keeper, and you could just sort of see the class of a striker when they don't panic and when the keeper's running right at them. You know what I mean?
Thank
Um,
you. Yeah, no, I again, I was quite quick. So if balls were played through the middle or over the top, I tend to get onto them. So
yeah,
yeah, I was quite pleased with that little lob as well as lob the goalkeeper. So yeah, very nice.
excellent. So I would be kicking myself if I didn't ask you a little bit about playing for Canada. So
Okay.
you've scored, I believe I read 11 goals for Canada. What was that feeling like to play for your country? And was it better to play for your country or for a club?
Ooh, that's a really, really tough question. Um, uh, to represent your country is just the most wonderful honor you can possibly imagine. You know, you're seen as one of the best in the country, so it's a huge honor. And I loved coming back and playing. We had a very good team camaraderie again. Still to this day, I speak to Craig Forrest, who's a very close friend of mine.
Yeah, and he was an
Um,
analyst in
that's
Canada for
right.
a while.
That's right. He's yeah. Now that they're not showing as much football on TV, but he was doing. Was he on Rogers? No, he's a great guy. He was my roommate. The likes of Carlo Corazine and Mark Watson, um, Jimmy Brennan, Mark
Yeah,
Burcham. We had some great players that we were fortunate to play with, and we had some great times, great trips, and we were fortunate to win the Gold Cup, which to this day I
yeah,
can't see how any team will recreate that. I know we've got some really good up and coming young players coming now, which is exciting to see. Players playing in Europe with Alfonso
yeah.
Davis and um, the boy is he in
Jonathan
Belgium or
David as
France?
well.
Jonathan David, who's been linked with West Ham. So yeah, no, it's exciting to see all these young kids. But to do what we did, especially at that time when we were considered extreme underdogs, was a huge achievement and one I'll never forget. It
Yeah.
was the most amazing achievement of all times. So yeah, it was an honor to play for my country.
Yeah, it's difficult to say whether that feat will ever be done again because Canada's not the only country bringing up all these fantastic young players. The States has a few really good ones like Pulisic and um,
Yes,
uh, Weston McKennie, just to name a few. Um,
yes. The
but
Mexicans are always strong as well. It's going to be
Mexicans are always
extremely
good, yeah.
difficult. It's going to be extremely difficult. But back then, it was, we were considered probably third world compared to the rest of those. But yeah, it will be hard for countries. But what I'm saying is it's nice to see finally players playing in the top leagues in the world because it's been a
Yeah,
long time since we've had that. So it can only
yeah,
be good for soccer in Canada. It's
yeah.
tough with our climate. It's not exactly conducive to soccer because of the cold winter
No,
months. We don't have the population, but a lot of kids are playing the game, and hopefully things will improve.
yeah. And somewhere out there, somewhere, there's someone who's seeing Alfonso Davies and Jonathan David play and saying, "I want to be him next." Uh, like I want to be
Yes,
the next him. You know what I mean?
yes, and that's what we need. We need idols. We need players that young kids can look up to, aspire to be like. And
Yeah,
no better players than the likes of the players you mentioned.
yeah. And obviously, we now have the CPL. I don't know if you've heard any of that kind of, but they
Yeah,
just
of
launched
course.
a new Canadian league, and
Yes. No, I'm very aware of it because obviously Jimmy Brennan, who's at York Nine, and
yeah,
I've had some talks with some of the other teams, so it's nice to
yeah,
see. And I'm glad that they're starting slow because it's not, it's easy to jump into something, try to do something grand, and it fails. So,
yeah,
I think it's very important that we've got a platform for young Canadians. I know the MLS is good and it's improving, but it's still not conducive to Canadians. They're still seen
no,
as foreigners. We need a league where all our Canadian kids can aspire to play in and can get the best coaching possible and play in the most competitive league. Because if it wasn't for myself playing in the Canadian Soccer League at the time, playing men's football, the best competitive football I could have played in Canada, then it wouldn't have given me the coaching and the background that I needed to survive in Europe. So we need that. We need it. And I'm
yeah,
sure that it'll continue to prove and evolve, and hopefully it can rival the MLS at some stage, and Europe in a longer term.
Yeah, and obviously there's actually a team coming to Guelph as well. They're creating tiers in Canada just like they would have in England, and Guelph is going to get a team called Guelph United. So it's an exciting
You're
thing
going to
for
sign
us.
up? Are you going to sign up? Are you a
My
player yourself?
playing days are far behind me, unfortunately.
All right. How about coaching? How about a coaching role, scouting role?
If they'll have me, I'll take it. But yeah, it's always exciting, and it's a great opportunity for Canadian players to get a chance.
Absolutely, that's what we want.
All right, so thanks so much for joining me today, Paul. We'll wrap it up there, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in to this exclusive WBA Canada interview with Paul Peschisolido. I would like to once again thank Paul for joining me today, and invite you all to like and subscribe to my channel.